Okay, what we're going to do is get the kickstand off of here, and I've already released the spring from the kickstand, and when you do that, make sure it's in this position so that there isn't too much of a load on the spring, and just use a screwdriver and take it off of the big side first, not the side that's on the frame, and it pops off pretty easy. Once you get that off, get the spring out of there, and then basically just remove this bolt right here and the kickstand will come off. So we're going to get that bolt off, and I'll tell you what size it was after we get it off. Alright, we had a little bit of trouble getting that Kickstarter bolt out. It's a 17 millimeter, and we ended up using an impact wrench to get it off. It was pretty tight, so got it off, and we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, we're going to remove the clutch cable, and what we've done so far is we've removed the clutch cable from the lever here, and there's another connector, there's a bolt right here that's holding it to the engine, and we're taking that bracket off, and it's a 10 millimeter wrench that's used to remove that, and then it's connected by another piece up here holding it to the frame, so we're going to remove that and get this cable out of the way. Okay, we're going to remove the wiring harness, and as you can see, keep track of how it's routed throughout the bike. This is basically just a piece that you pry up a little bit, and it'll allow you to get the wire out from underneath it, and just kind of trace it down. Looks like this bike has some tape holding it here, and then there's another little bracket holding it right here. We'll get off, and then this bracket here, and just keep track of how it's traced through the bike. You know, take a picture of it, do whatever you need to do, but there we go. I'm going to get that off of there. Okay, we're going to get the CDI and the spark plug ignito, or the coil, out of the bike, and basically this is what I'm talking about here. This part right here is the CDI. This is the coil. You can see the spark plug wire comes around to the top up here, and then all the wires connected in here. We figure this is going to be a little bit easier to get this up and out of the bike in order to get at these wires and keep track of what's going on here. So that's our next step. We're going to get those out of the bike. Okay, we're removing the skid plate from underneath the bike right now, and there's a total of 3 bolts holding it in place, and I do believe they're all 10 millimeter. So we're going to get the skid plate off of the bike and go from there. There's 2 bolts right here in the back, and then in the front there's 1 bolt right there in the front. Okay, we're at a point now where we're getting the motor out of the frame of the bike, and the motor's attached to a bunch of different spots. You can see there's a frame support right here that bolts onto the motor in the front, and we're going to take all these bolts and the support bracket out. The motor's also connected right here on the top of the frame. It's connected right here, and down at the bottom of the motor you can see it's also got bolts holding it. So it's well secured inside the frame. So we're going to get the front off, which motor won't fall out of here, obviously, not with all these other connection points. So we're going to get this out of here, and I'll tell you the bolt sizes when we're done. Well, we're getting ready to start work on the XR200R engine. We're going to do a complete rebuild. Going to take this sucker apart and go through it and see what's worn out and what's not, and replace everything we can and make this a fresh bike. We're probably going to start out right here getting this cable off the bike, and you can see where it's connected here, and there's a little cotter pin that holds it in this lever right here. So we're going to get that cotter pin out, remove this bolt right here to get the brace that's holding the cable on. And then up top here you can see there's a spring and a one of those little bead locks that's holding the cable, and then this bolt right here. And I'll let you know what sizes the bolts were, and we're going to get that cable off. Okay, got the cable off, no problem at all. That's what it looks like when it's off the engine. and I released the spring here so there's no more spring tension. This bolt right here was a 10 millimeter, and that held this bracket right here on the top, and then it came around the side here and I had to remove this bolt here. I put it back just in place so I could keep track of it, and that held this bracket right here. And then down at the bottom here on the motor, there is a whole separate piece which came off the bike, and it has a nut associated with it and a little cotter pin, which this camera's not wanting to focus, but there's a cotter pin that holds it in place. So I'm going to put this in a bag so I don't lose it, and move on to the next step. Okay, we're at another step here. We're going to remove the head of the motor. First thing we have to do here is remove the CDI cover. There's 2 screws right here, and we're going to get that CDI cover off. Okay, we got the CDI cover off, and what I've done now is I've loosened these 2 screws and taken them off, and I'm taking off this faceplate here. And if you look, there's a little notch on that faceplate that's a timing mark, and there's also a timing mark right here on the deal, and you want to line those up. Now I'm removing these 2 screws, and that will remove the main plate that holds the 2 heads together. Okay, well, the next step here is to remove this bolt right here. It's 10 millimeter. We've already broke it loose, and pull it off there, and then the whole assembly slides out, and you can see there's a keyway inside here that you need to line it back up with. So we're that far ahead. Now we're going to just take this cover off, kind of wiggle it back and forth, and it comes right off, and that exposes the cam chain, and shut it down. Okay, I'm going to take the valve adjustment parts off. I've already broken them loose, and I'm just going to take them both off of the top of the head. Okay, and the next step here is we're going to remove all the bolts on the top of the head so that we can get the head off the top of the bike. Okay? Okay, what I did is I removed this bolt out of the top here, and this is the compression release lever that connects to that cable that we removed earlier. After the bolt is removed, that compression release lever will slide right out. I pulled the head off of the bike, and I'll show you here what I did. It comes off the top, and basically take a screwdriver and very gently break the seal loose, and then break the seal loose on the other side without damaging the surfaces on the top. Now we're going to start doing an inspection of the motor and see what we got going on here. Well, I got a little ahead of myself. I forgot to film. The cam gear was sitting here with the chain wrapped around it, and there were 2 bolts holding it on. Basically, I removed those 2 bolts, wrapped a piece of wire around that cam chain, and pulled that cam gear off of the front of the cam, and then took the chain off of it, and then just lifted the cam out from this area. There's nothing holding it in once the cam gear is off of it. So that's all I did. Okay, we're working on the motor again, and we're going to take off the valve head here off the top, and what I've removed is I removed this bolt here, which held the cam chain tensioner on the inside, and then there's another bolt that runs straight down inside the head. Those are the only 2 bolts holding the valve head at this point. So once this bolt's removed and this bolt's removed, the entire head will move and come off. So at this point I'm going to wiggle it back and forth and remove that head. Well, as you can see, I took the valve head off, and here's the valves, and you can see where the spark plug is right here. Take note that there's a little O-ring on this part of the head. This is what transfers oil up into the upper head for the cam and everything, so make sure you, when you put this thing back together, that you put a new O-ring right here. It's very important. It will leak inside and you'll smoke like crazy if you don't get that O-ring in there. And here's the top up here. Here's the cam chain tensioner, and actually the spring feels a little weak, so definitely going to replace that. And here is the cam chain guide on this side here, and we're going to inspect both of those and see what kind of condition they're in. I'm going to remove the head gasket right now, and obviously we got to replace that when we do put this bike back together. But so far everything's looking pretty nice inside that cylinder head, so we may not need to buy a new piston, just maybe some new rings. Okay, we got the second head off, which is the jug where the piston resides, and there is a cam tensioner, or not a cam tensioner, but a cam chain guide that is right here that you basically just pull out of that head before you remove it. So you pull it out and then that jug will just slide right off of these here. And we made ourselves a little jig to hold the piston so the piston didn't get damaged. And basically this jig is 2 inches wide, and the dimensions are half an inch, a half an inch, and then from here to here is 5 inches, and then the entire length of this jig is 8 inches. So that, by making a 2-inch wide piece of wood and cutting it so there's ½ inch on each side and then 5 inches long, it'll slide right in between these stanchions and hold your piston up. I mean, it's a great little jig. It takes about 5 minutes to make, and you'll be happy. The next step we're going to do here is we're going to get into the clutch on this side, and all these bolts that are on the side are 10mm, and there's a lot of them, so make sure you don't miss a single one, because this cover should come off relatively easy. So if you have a lot of challenges, then you've probably missed a bolt. So okay, we're going to get into that. Just a little note here to help everybody out when you go to do this clutch cover here. We've already removed all the bolts on the outside of the clutch cover, and there's quite a few of them. I think there's 12 altogether. But one of the things we noticed as we were taking them out is they're all different sizes. So not all of them are different, but there are quite a few. So what we did is we got a piece of cardboard and we noted the number 1 and where it was located on the cover, and we went clockwise as we removed them and put them in a piece of cardboard here and inside a Ziploc. And now when we go to put this cover back on, this should be a piece of cake, because we'll have them all in the right order and should make the job go quicker. Alright. Okay, we got a little ahead of things here. I've already removed the flywheel. You can back up just a little bit. And what I did is I bought this puller here, and it threads right into the end of the, you can stand back a little bit with the camera. You can thread it right into the end of the flywheel here, and what it does is it'll push it right up off of this tapered axle here, and then it'll pop right off. And the flywheel puller is this model right here, and it worked really well, and it cost me about $8. Okay, after removing the flywheel, what we're going to do now is there's a bolt and a jam nut on the top of the case here, and this is a 14mm down here, and this one here is a 10mm. And what we did is we held this one with a 14mm wrench and used a 10mm socket and broke this loose, and that'll allow us to be able to remove the cam chain tensioner so that we can check the spring and make sure everything's good there. I do know that the cam chain is needing replaced because it's sloppy, so we're gonna replace that chain. And we're going to just double check this cam chain tensioner and make sure that the spring is in good repair. Okay, what we've done is we have loosened the cam chain tensioner bolt on the top here and took it completely out. And what that does is it allows this part down here to come all the way up, which controls the cam chain tensioner. Down here at the bottom, this is spring-loaded piece, and I removed the nut or the bolt that held it in place from right here, and that's a 10 millimeter. And what we're going to do now is take that spring-loaded piece off so we can get the cam chain off. And that's where we're at right